Thanks for doing this, Gerry. It's brilliant to see you. And I guess with Dublin Bowie Festival, I mean, that must be a very special event for you, given that you're based in New York, obviously worked with David for quite a while, but you also get to go home.
Yeah, yeah. It's always been kind of like I get a little excited when I bring David's stuff back to Dublin. Even when we did reality back in the day, I was so bloody nervous that day because we were bringing the show there, but also with a great sense of pride because I felt so good about what we were doing and working with David and bringing that show to Dublin was just special. So the festival started out very innocently, and then of course the first year we did it, David passed away, so it was even more significant. We all had this moment, and I was in Dublin when I got the news, and it was just surreal and very sad, obviously. But we've continued, and I feel like the festival has gotten stronger and stronger. They keep asking me back. I'm like, really, are you sure? you know. But now we have this nice hookup with the RTE Concert Orchestra, and they've been doing their Bowie show, and they got me involved, and I was able to bring some of the Bowie band. So it's really special to bring those two events together, and I feel like we're bringing something really special to Dublin.
You've got a range of things. Have you got some QAs and you've got the RT orchestra in
Yeah.
one show, and then there's another performance maybe, I think.
Yes. Yes. It's really two things going on simultaneously. The RTE orchestra is staged by RTE. It's hosted by RTE, and the orchestra does public concerts. So this is like one of their series, but we're able to hang the Bowie Festival around it because everybody gets along, which is great in this day and age. That people are not, no, mine, you can't have any of that. So what we have is on Sunday night we have the cherry on the cake, which is the orchestra with now the extended Bowie band of Sterling Campbell on drums, Mark Platti on bass, Gail Ann Dorsey on singing and playing a little bit of bass on some things, and Mike Garson's going to come now, and he just did it. He wanted to do an arrangement of Aladdin Sane, so he was able to make some of that happen, and so we'll have a world premiere of that going on. So that's the Sunday night, and then because everybody's in town, everybody's going to come to town early, and as part of the Bowie Festival, we're having a Q&A on the Thursday night, where I'm hoping to do like an anatomy of a track. So have the guys talk about a track that they were deeply involved in the creation with David, and just to talk about that process. I thought it might be nice for the fans to hear a little bit of the backstory about some of those records that everybody loves. And then on Friday night, we're going to play in Whelan's and play a club gig,
Wow.
which is right there. The audience is right there. It's a tiny place. It's like 350, 400 people. It's already sold out. It's going to be jammed to the rafters. We have a couple of Irish musicians joining us to fill out the ranks. And then I have Mike Garson, Gail Ann Dorsey, Mark Platti, and myself to bolster the Bowie band ranks. And, we're going to have a rock and show. We did it last year, and it was so much fun. And then I have Mike Garson's going to do his own little lecture on Sunday morning and talk about, well, actually, I don't know what he's going to talk about, but I think he's going to talk about his career path with David and some stories and anecdotes. He's a chatterbox, and that'll be really nice. And Saturday we have our rehearsals. So I think there's local bands going to be playing. There's a couple of really good Bowie bands based in Dublin, and they're going to play. And I'm sure there's other events. I haven't seen the full program, but yeah.
A no-brainer, but if you're a Bowie fan in that period, that is definitely the place to be, really.
It's great. It's a testament to the Dublin Bowie Festival now that all my friends from the Bowie band are all like, can I come? I want to come this year. So this year we're bringing Gail and Mike because they were like, Gail loves singing with the orchestra. It's her favorite thing to do. And I'm like, I have a gig for you. And Mike is I'd invited him the year before and he wasn't able to come. And he said, I want to come this year. So we made it happen. Yeah.
I spoke to Mark a few weeks back about
Great.
his time with David and Dublin Bowie Festival. It was through him that you started working with David, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mark was the person who introduced me to David. He was working on the Toy record at the time, and I was working on a little album an independent record in Looking Glass Studios, and they have a B room. I was in the little B room, and David was up with Mark in the A room. And Mark came down one evening and said, "You want to play on a Bowie track?" Which there's only one answer to. And then he handed me a CDR of the track, and he said, "Here's the track, you know." So I went home that night, and I had a little, in my little flat in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, I had a little Pro Tools rig, and I just remember plugging it in. It was around midnight, and opening it up. There's a David Bowie song. It's kind of like, yeah, you know, do your thing on it. It's pretty special. That, you know, led to me meeting him and doing more sessions, and then he came and saw me play, and I got to play on the records a bit, and then I got to do the Heathen tour, etc., reality tour, etc. Yeah. So Mark was the one that put me in touch for sure. Got me on the Bowie train.
And you built up quite a wealth of experience that meant that you were perfectly placed to collaborate with David, because you spent a lot of time in the studio back in Ireland in the 1980s, and you'd worked with quite a lot of well-known artists, and then obviously in bands, and then you went over to New York and carried on with studio work, didn't you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Dublin was my hometown, and you know, the first few chapters were there. But I worked in a 24-track studio there. And then we got to do all the demos with the Irish bands there in that studio, because the studio was such that it was mostly dark at the weekends, which was perfect for us, for bands. So we'd rent a roll of tape, and for a couple of £100, I was able to bring a band in there. We'd come out bleary-eyed on Monday morning at 6 a.m, having mixed 4 tracks, everybody had hands on the faders and stuff. But it was really fun. It was a really creative time. Sinead O'Connor came through the studio then. Phil Lynott came through the studio as a producer. Edge came and guested on a few things. It's just like the scene. And I, of course, had my own bands. And later on, I got my own band signed to Island Records with my friend Donald Coughlin, and we made a record. And that felt like we'd finally arrived and got to go to New York and everything. And then when, as it does, record came and went, because we didn't get A-listed on the BBC. Suddenly we were like, oh, we were in the bargain bin. And you know, I still have the leather jacket, Jason. I took it out. I joke, that's like the only thing it's left at the end of a record deal is the leather jacket. And it's true. And then I moved to New York because I was like, either I start another band. I was burnt out on starting the bands thing, and guitar was my passion. I'm just steeped in it, and I've been playing it all. So when I came to New York, and I was like, oh my God, there's 1,000 guitar players here of very high level. So I had to carve out my own individual thing, which, you know, when we were coming up in Dublin, and I'm sure it's the same in the UK and London with bands, you know, you had to be different. You had to have some kind of signature. I mean, that was expected, that your band would sound not like the other band. So I think I brought that spirit with me to New York and tried to figure out what I was really interested in as a guitar player and tried to hone that. And that's what made me useful to David, I think, because at that point I was doing a lot of so-called ambient stuff, or I'd written had my own project going, and you know, I would do live looping and all that kind of thing. That was in the early days. Now your phone has a looper, everybody has a looper, but back then it was brand new technology, and the idea that you could hit a switch and hit it again and capture this thing, which was perfect for me coming from the studio. It was like, this is like having a little studio thing and my own rhythm guitar player or whatever, you know. So, but I tried to take that into a place where it's not completely just banging out a few chords and singing over the top of it. It's more elaborate than that. But that's what made me, I think, useful to David, because he needed somebody who could cover all those great guitar players that he'd had over the years, Robert Fripp and Adrian Belew and you know, and even Mick Ronson, of course, Mick Ronson stuff. That's a little bit more straightforward guitar, beautiful guitar player, inspirational, and I love playing mixed stuff. But it was like going through his catalog and picking out the songs, and you get to be a little bit of a chameleon to try and address those things for him.
In that early period where you were with David, he was playing material from Low, Sound of Vision, and Reaching Back at times, as well as Heathen.
Yeah, because we did the Toy record, and then he shelved it mysteriously, and then he did the Heathen record, which was a very different record. And then when he wanted to tour that, one of the big opening salvos for that tour was he headed the Meltdown Festival in London. Was that 2001? And so Meltdown, as we know, he curates all the bands, and then he had a performance. And for his performance, he wanted to do his new album, Heathen, and the Low album from the Berlin trilogy, which is, master genius. But the brief was, we came to rehearsal and was like, okay, we're doing the Low record. Like, wow, side 2. So we learned all that stuff. It was amazing to have that in the band. I remember even later on, we went and did some subsequent touring where we played more like the new record and the hits and all that kind of thing. We were in some club in Berlin, and the crowd's going crazy, and we're second encore, and we come off, and he's like, he turns to the band and says, "We do the Low album." We're like, "Yeah, if I can do it." So we went back out, and he's, "Okay, we're going to do the Low album." The crowd were fucking bonkers, What a gift, Yeah.
You can kind of see a bit of a thread. I don't know if David was an influence, but even with your sort of early spooky ghost material, there's an album you did, The Light Machine, and you can see a connection there that David must have kind of recognized.
Maybe so, yeah. What was really nice is when I started to work with David and I would play in his songs, it felt like there was a place for me, like my stuff resonated with him. And so it was a natural thing, like I would do what I felt instinctually I should do. And he liked it. He would make space for that and resonated with him. I think the Next Day album was really where I got to do that most, because I came in at the beginning of that record, and I ended up doing some co-writing, which was another amazing twist in the tale for that record. But and live, he gave me a lot of space to do. I would, when we did some of the tracks like Sunday and Heathen from that David Torn had done all these beautiful ambiences on, and I was like, let me have a go at creating them live. Something very special I found over the years. If you go out in a room and you create something right in front of people, that becomes the atmosphere. It's properly appropriate to the space and everything, and the mood and the tempo and everything. So, doing it right there and then, as opposed to pressing a button and saying, "Here's one we prepared earlier," which that's like putting a record on, and that can go either way. But making it live just kind of charges the room with a certain kind of energy. He gave me a lot of room, and I'm very thankful for him for that.
Was Loving the Alien a case in point there? Because that's like that reality tour here. It's a real tour de force and quite a different arrangement to the 1980s version.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one where it was David's idea to do this, as in he called me up and he said, "Do you want to play Carnegie Hall with me on Saturday night?" This was like a Tuesday. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Of course, yes, I do." And he's like, "Okay, I want to do Loving the Alien. I want it to be just you and I want to start on a C minor, rehearsal on Friday, click." So I went and listened to the track again. I was like, oh my God, it's such a big production, 80s production. But that was a classic thing of like, as Spooky Ghost, like how would I approach this? And so using that little paint box, I just took one little line of this melodic motif, and then found some nice inversions that really kind of opened up on the guitar. And I thought, okay, this is good. And I'd worked with a lot of singers over the years. That was really my training in New York, was working with singer-songwriters. You've got to become an accompanist then, but in an interesting way, not just like strumming along. So that's where that arrangement came, and I played it for him in the rehearsal room. He just came in, started singing, and that was it. His mind was made up. So we're doing that on a Saturday night. So he liked it so much, we did it on the reality tour, and it's become a thing now, and I'm very proud of it. But that's how that came about, and very much from the Spooky Ghost. I mean, if you came to a Spooky Ghost gig, you would hear that kind of thing. You'd be like, oh yeah, that's like a Spooky Ghost. So with a better singer.
I said that's not putting you down, given David's incredible voice. Was it right that Mark sort of left the live arena, and for the reality tour you took over as musical director?
That's right. Yeah. Mark, there was another thing he dumped in my lap, a gift basket of fruit. He had this other huge project that he was committed to, and it conflicted with David's tour. And so Mark had been the band leader, MD up to that point, and he had to step out. And then, but he put my name forward. He said, and he called me and said, I've suggested you to David for the MD. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, because I really felt I was in my short trousers with these guys. And so I had to think about it for a few days, Jason. And all my friends were like, you're crazy. You got to take this job. And I was like, I don't know if that's the right thing. And then, of course, I took it, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was a steep learning curve for me. But like you said, I'd had the background in recording studios. I was very au fait with the whole kind of recording and production, and I was fluent in Pro Tools and all of those kind of things. So, I could do all the preparation work, as it were, and editing and all that kind of stuff. And then I had my production chops, and I'd been a band leader in my own band for years. So it's not that different. It's bigger and better and a little bit more at stake, but it's the same kind of thing. So I kind of had these skills, I guess, and put them, that became the reality tour, which was amazing. It was amazing. I started work on that, but in May, I think we started rehearsing with the band in July, and we had all these rehearsals, and then out on the road for almost a year. It was beautiful, yeah.
And you mentioned at the start the Dublin show, which I think that's the one that's captured on that incredible film.
Yeah, reality.
That must have been such a highlight of your time in music. Not only you're MD with David and you're playing with a band and you're working with incredible musicians, but it's in Dublin as well.
We played Birmingham the night before, and I remember getting on the little airplane. We were flying over to Dublin that morning to do 2 nights in Dublin, and we knew that we were going to be doing the DVD. So for me, it was like a homecoming. I was coming as band leader, and we had this huge project that, in the quintessential words of David Bowie, don't fuck it up, Gerry. It was like, here it is. So I was so nervous. But everybody in the band could sense, I think they were all like, give me a hug. It was like, it's going to be all right. I was like, and then we had these 2 amazing nights, and my friends and family came, but more to the point, I was so proud of the band that we had. It was so excellent. David was in good form. We got him a few Irish phrases to say at the start of the show, and we had these 2 incredible shows. And it's there on the night he introduces me, and the crowd just start cheering, and then they cheer and cheer and cheer, and it's, oh my God, I was so embarrassed, but it's very emotional. And then at the end he goes, oh, he's actually from Tunbridge, Wales, because he was mischievous. And the hotel clerk the next day I was checking out, and he's, oh, so you're from Tunbridge, Wales? I swear to God.
That famous Tunbridge Wells accent that you've got there, Gerry.
I've tried to shed it, but it keeps coming back. So it was an honor. It was really special. And we're going back to that same venue this time with the orchestra. It's renamed, as they do. It used to be called the Point, and then it was the O2, and now it's the 3 Arena, or the Point 023, as I want to call it now. But it's the same venue. So we're going to do this gig with the orchestra back, 20 odd years later in the same venue. It's amazing. But with a lot of the same people. I'll have Mike and Gail and Mark and Sterling and myself. We've got 5 of the 7 band members there. It's amazing.
You've obviously worked with a lot of artists, but the other artist other than David that you've got a huge collaboration relationship with is Suzanne Vega. When did that partnership develop? Was it post the reality tour, or was it earlier?
It was actually earlier. I started to work with Suzanne before. I worked with an artist called Duncan Sheik, who's very popular here in the States, and he's gone on to do Broadway work and all that. And his producer was Rupert Hine, a famous producer. He did a lot of stuff over the years. And Rupert was up for producing Suzanne's record and knew my guitar playing from Duncan. So he called me and said, we want to come and play on Suzanne's record. We were doing a tryout for it. Of course, I wanted to do that. And we hit it off, and then I started working with her on the back of that, touring that record. So, one thing led to another. I remember going to Suzanne at one point, and she just released a new record, and I called her up and I said, Suzanne, I'm not going to be able to do the next tour. She's like, what's the problem? I was like, well, I've been asked to work with this other artist, and I'm just like, who? And I was like, David Bowie. And she's, oh. So she was cool that she was getting bumped for David Bowie. And she was proud of me and she was very supportive. And then I came back to her afterwards. I got some of my friends to come in and cover for me and came back. Since then, we've been doing a lot. Last number of years, we've been doing a lot as a duo. And I just produced her new record. I've done her last probably 4 records now. I co-wrote a lot of the songs and produced the record. That's going to come out in spring. It's just about to hit. And it's turned out really great. That'll be maybe my 4th record producing with her. And I've played on 2 others before that. So yeah, it's turned into like the Suzanne and Gerry show,
In terms of that co-writing, was it the album of Suzanne's about a decade ago, Realm of the Queen of Pentacles, the first one where kind of co-wrote the vast majority of that album?
Yeah, I was around that record. I was working with Suzanne pretty consistently then. And, Suzanne is somebody, she's got she needed a structure to somewhere to go and write. As our lives become full of things, and then she didn't have a place at home where she could really focus on her work. So I put a structure in where we would meet every week and work on the songs, and then she'd have a little thread of an idea and I'd help her realize that. Or she had a lyric, like when we did Never Wear White, she's like, I need something like the Rolling Stones. And I was like this, because I just had an idea for something. And we had a couple of those nice sympathetic moments where she needed a song and I had something, and that song we still play. That was the first record that I really co-wrote a lot with. And the same with this new record. I put the same kind of thing where she would come out every week or every 2 weeks and we to my little studio in the city and we wrote. And then at a certain point, after about a year of writing, we were like, okay, let's go and start making the record, which is what we did. So it's nice. It's a nice collaborative process. It feels very natural to do it those ways. That's what we've always done. You get in the rehearsal space. It used to be like our friend's garage when his dad's car was out of the way. We'd set up, and make a racket. Now it's just, did the same thing with David, do the same thing with Suzanne. Just get in a room and start trying to figure it out.
Could you tell me about what it was like playing at the Brit Awards in 2016 with Lord? It must have been quite a strange feeling. David was there in spirit, but obviously he, sadly passed away.
Yeah, it was really a thing. I mean, they approached us and got in touch with me because I'd been the musical director and said, you have this idea of putting the reality band back together to sell it with Lord. So, even the logistics of that, Jason, were just days and days at my kitchen table here with spreadsheets going, budgets, and Gail was going to be in San Francisco with Lenny Kravitz, and how do we get her there on time? And we have a substitute bass player, actually, Guy Pratt came in who plays with Pink Floyd and stuff. He came and played all Gail's part and was like our guy. If Gail's flight got stuck, he would be able to do the gig. But we had all this to find everybody, put it together. And then Sterling came up to my house here and we carved out the little kind of overture of all David's songs. And then we found the right key for Lord. And she was in California and she went to Mike's house and we got the key. And, bit by bit, we were able to put it together and create this thing and then get everybody there and rehearse it and then play it. But it was on the moment that we were doing it, was very emotional for everybody. But I think everybody felt really good that this was the last band that David had. So we felt like we were the right people to hand off that message, in a sense, because we had his stamp of approval. And we really tried to be respectful of David's wishes with all the songs and everything like that. And then Laura she did a beautiful job.
You mentioned the album with Suzanne. Are you doing more spooky ghost material or anything else David Bowie related?
Yeah. January tends to be our Bowie season. Here in New York at a club called The Cutting Room, we did 4 nights. And there's a lot of guys in New York and girls in New York that played with David over the years. So we had Gail Ann Dorsey and we had Catherine Russell. And then we had Donny McCaslin from the Black Star album. Donny, of course, has his own trio, but Donny's quintet had done the Black Star record. And then we had a couple of guys who did the Lazarus Project. And then we had Carmine Rojas came in from LA who, played on Let's Dance and all of those records and all the Glass Spider tour and all that kind of thing. So we have this collection of people that are available in New York in January, and we did 4 nights with 31 Bowie songs, and that was really fun. It was pretty intense, but it was really fun. It was really fun. So that's just finished. I'm prepping for the Dublin thing. I have another major artist that I'm doing a record that I can't talk about right now, but that's been taking up a lot of time. And then Suzanne's record is just done, and we're prepping for that tour. And then I've a little bit of, I just did a movie soundtrack, and that movie's just coming out, which is beautiful work. And there's another movie in the work. So I just did a little bit of work for that. Hopefully that's going to blossom in the spring. Yeah, it's pretty busy. It's pretty busy, I got to say. There's a lot of, I feel like I've 3 projects in my head right now, and they're all sending me texts and emails like, where's this? Where's that? But we're getting there. We're getting there. So, and Spooky Ghost is always bubbling away in the background. I mean, I tried over the lockdown period, when we all got sent to our rooms for a year. I tried to do an ambient music project where I originated and recorded and mixed and basically produced everything at home just to see if I could do it. And I'm pretty successful with that. And I did a vinyl of that, which is up there.
Yeah.
And the Spooky Ghost stuff is always like a little, it's always, the tap is just on a little drip, so it doesn't, the pipes don't freeze, you know. But it's really, I don't do a lot of promotion with it, but it's there, and I'm always writing. It's like where I try new things. Really, is what Spooky Ghost is for me. So because there's no rules, it's very freeing, and if any direction I want to go in or deepen, I can go. You know, when I work with artists, I really have to try and fit my stuff into their music and try and figure out a good combination. But with Spooky Ghost, it's Spooky Ghost all the time. It's really fun.
Can you tell me a bit more about your kind of more recent Spooky Ghost albums and any particular tracks that are worth spotlighting?
Yeah, after the Light Machine, I started to write another record. So the Light Machine is a combination of songs and instrumentals, and I also had my trio on there. I'm very happy with that record and the way it worked. And then I started to make another record, which I have a lot of demos of, but I don't know, for some reason it just didn't, it wasn't really sticking with me. And so I think the ambient stuff now, the series, I did 3 EPs called Viral Times, and Volume 3 is actually one that I think I'm really happy with. Most of that is on this vinyl. The vinyl is like a compilation of those 3. And then I have some new work, but I haven't published it yet. So really, probably the stuff from Viral Times Volume 3 is my latest opus. It's music that I think is really for your personal space. It's like your own soundtrack to whatever you want to do. So if it's going for a walk or being in the gym or just sitting or vacuuming or washing your dishes or whatever, it's really like supposed to be like, there's no rhythmic, it's not rhythm based, so there's no grooves or any of those kind of things. It's much more like a space thing, but it's compositional, and they're improvised, and then it's like I improvise the basic drawing and then I fill in the colors, so it feels like it's of one source. I go through a lot of pieces before I settle on one that I think it really has the elements that, so you'll see they're all numbered VT 15, but it goes up to VT 72. You know, I mean, there's a lot of them, but that's the idea. Is it comes from nature and comes from our own nature, and I'm interested in. I think music is a great. It does many things, but you know, it resonates with us. And I personally, I have always had this. I realize a kind of emotional connection with music. So I think my music, it's emotional. It's not designed to make you break down and cry or anything like that, but it is to do with a certain amount of attunement to ourselves, and especially in these busy times. So that's what I've been doing recently, and it's a nice contrast to all the other work that I do, which is a lot of songs and things specifically for certain purposes. This has less purpose to it.
David was quite very complimentary
Yeah,
about
he
Spooky Ghost,
was.
wasn't he?
He was. He gave me a lovely quote for the Light Machine. He really liked that record, and he came to a few Spooky Ghost gigs over the years. Um, he'd always say, "Oh, you're working tonight, Jerry," because even sometimes on the reality tour, my tech was really good at booking me shows. So like we get to Australia and you got a Spooky Ghost gig on Friday night. And I was able to bring some of the Bowie band members and stuff. It became this great thing where it was like the alternate Bowie kind of thing on the couple of nights before the big show and stuff. But he came out to a few of those. And he was always very supportive of your work, writing. He loved it, and he loved to see that in artists. So I always felt supported by him. You know,
Was that one of the great things about working with David? Just the support and the culture that he gave
yeah,
to you, and
yeah, yeah, yeah. It felt like The Apprentice and The Master. And but when you were working with him, he never made it feel like there was an imbalance. When you were working and you had your guitar on, and he's got, it felt very much like just two guys in a room working it out. Obviously, one guy's super talented, but it's a night when you have that level playing field, you get better results. And then if I would play him something, he would give me a very honest critique of it. It was very validating for me to work with David, because half the time you're like, is this any good? I like it, but is it any good? And then he goes, yeah, I like it. It's like, oh, okay, he likes it. Must be good. Yeah, it was. But I learned so much from working with David, just being around him and seeing how he did his art and how he treated other people and musicians, and fantastic.
brilliant. It's a great way to close, Gerry. The dates and everything around Dublin Bowie
Yeah.
Festival sounds amazing and extra special for you, given it's your background, your homeland. All the
Yeah.
best with that. It sounds amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for doing this. And yeah, come to a show if you can. But it's going to be a really amazing weekend. Really, really, I'm really thrilled this year to have all of these special guests. I think that's going to really bring something unique to the proceedings. That's a terrible way to put it. It's going to be a smash.
I'm sure there's an Irish phrase to there could be a lot of crack or something.
Yeah, crack could be 90. I don't really go in for that stuff, I have to say. The crack was 90, Roof high. That's what my auntie used to say. We'd be having a sing song, and then we get to the last chorus, and she'd always yell out "roof high," meaning you'd sing to the top of the rafters. So, I think that's probably the spirit. Roof high.
We'll close with that. Thanks a lot, Gerry.
Thanks, Jason. Cheers, man.